Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wargaming Terrain tutorial. This week I'm going to look at making the drums you saw at the start of the video. For this it's really easy, nice easy materials. We found these large straws at the cheap shop. They're not perfect, but they are going to look pretty good at the end of the day. So we're going to use those. We're also going to just need a small scrap of paper. This is just some A4 printer paper. I've just cut a small strip off so it's a bit easier to manage on the table. I'm also going to have another video out in the next week using these, so it should be a really exciting project, so please hit subscribe and you'll get the notification for that one. Now for these barrels I figured about 2 centimeters or around 3/4 of an inch was about scale that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to mark that out with a pen. I can just use my cutting board there, which has got centimeter squares on it. Now when cutting these out, I did find scissors was the best. Now you're probably not going to get a straight cut on the end, is the only thing about doing it this way. It'll be close, but you might notice it being slightly lopsided on the table when you set it down. So what you can do is just getting your scissors, you can just trim around any high points on either end. It shouldn't be too hard to cut through the plastic of these straws, so they're nice and easy to trim them up. Once you've got that done, just go through then and cut out the rest of them, as many as you're going to need. I find it's best to do these in batches. Now for this we're going to stick the ends on first, so we just grab our hot glue gun. Make sure you've got your scraps of paper or your scrap of paper nearby to stick this straight down onto. Now what we want to try and do is put a bead of glue all the way around the edge of that straw on the inside, just so that we don't have any separation from the paper once we stick it down, because we will cut this right back to the edge. Now we can just press this down onto any scrap of paper, so long as it's wide enough to get around the circle. Now I do press this in a little bit as the glue's drying. I just push the ends down. It just gives a little impression on the top and the bottom. You don't have to do that if you want perfectly flat ends. That's fine. Just don't do what I'm doing here, and that's just trying to press it in. Now you will need to also be very careful doing this, because the heat from your hot glue may weaken the plastic of the straw. So just be gentle as you press that down. And don't press too hard, and just keep in mind that hot glue will soften the straw. So we then just go ahead and do the same for the next end. Get both ends trimmed up. Just grab your knife and just cut it back. It doesn't have to be circular cut around the edge on this at this point. If you can do that, obviously go for it, but I just found it was easier just to trim back, as you can see there, and then run my knife around. If you've got a nice sharp craft knife here, it will work wonders and probably get through this a bit quicker and neater than my knife is currently doing. But that's all you need to do, is just trim that around until you've got that cut back to roughly where the straw meets this paper. And at this point you can take it a little bit further, and if you've got yourself a little bit of sandpaper or something, you can just give the edges a bit of a hit to get some of that paper that didn't cut because of my blunt knife. So if you just run that around the edges, you'll find that'll smooth that out a little bit and get rid of some of that that furry paper that seems to be sticking out. So once you've got that done, the next thing we're going to do is add our little bands around the barrel. Now for this you want a nice thin piece. That piece I've just cut there is too thin. The reason being, you're going to put glue on there, which is going to weaken it a little bit as you try to put it down onto the barrel. So too thin, and it might be more trouble than it's worth to get that look. But I found if you get something about 1 millimeter or slightly larger, it'll look fine on there. Again, the smaller it is, the better, but remember, you're going to have to try and glue this thing down. So just grab a piece of scrap cardboard or something to put a little bead of PVA glue down. It just needs to be a little drop. Just run the piece of paper through that bead of glue, or put some on your finger and run it over the paper. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit messy as you put this on, you will be able to wipe it away. So a bit of excess glue won't matter too much, but you don't want big globs on there. So all you got to do is press it down at one point and slowly feed it around the barrel. You might need to add some extra glue. I found the easiest way was just put a bit on your finger and run it along where it needs it. So just very gently pull this around to try and make it straight. Again, if you've got really thin cut paper here, it may break, so it can be a bit of a pain. Once you've got it around to about where you think it's going to meet up, just cut it with a pair of scissors. Don't try and tear it. You'll more than likely rip it somewhere else around the barrel rather than where you want it to be. Once you've got this on, you've got maybe a minute or so to manipulate where that paper is set on the straw or on the drum. It will set pretty quickly though, so if you've got to make any adjustments to it, try and do them as soon as you put it on. Now we're just going to do the second one here. Same process exactly. Again, it's probably best to try and drag the paper around the drum rather than what I'm doing here, which is pressing it on little bit by little bit. I found it just wasn't quite as accurate in the end. But whatever works for you. Once you get them all on there and set pretty straight, they don't have to be perfect. Once you get them painted up, they'll look fine, or they'll look decent enough for the table. Right, so I'd give that 5 minutes or so to dry, and then just hit it with some black primer. So I've hit these with the airbrush and some Vallejo black. You could just use a spray can, would be fine. Any paint, black paint of a spray can will do the job nicely, just as you see here. The trick is holding them while you're painting them. Now with this drum here, I actually fed some hot glue into the end there, knowing that it would soften the straw and glue it together. So I've just kind of crushed it there, as you can see, and I cut out the base for it after I crushed it, and it was set in place. It just made it a lot easier than trying to work with that paper being moved around at the bottom. So that's easy enough to do. You can certainly do those crushed barrels, they look really good. So here you can see, again, I probably could have used a sharper knife or tidied these up a little bit more, but they're looking really good as they are. A little bit more care and attention, as always, will get you better results. Now these ones are actually glued down to a pallet. We actually made those a few weeks back when we were making the ammo crate pallets, which you can see there. Now I really hope you liked the video today. Please hit subscribe. I'm really excited about next week's video, and I'm going to try and get it out a little bit early this week. So I hope this has helped. I'll see you next time.